y'all, it's Allison from CraftyisCool.com, and I wanted to make a video to show y'all how to make my Black Panther doll. I crocheted this after seeing the movie 2018, and I was just really inspired by the movie. I'm sure a lot of y'all were. And I came home and pretty much started working on it right then. And I also made his sister Shuri. This is a free pattern. It's at my website, CraftyisCool.com. If you click on blog, I'm going to add it to the free patterns section too, but for right now, that's where you find it. So you're only going to need a few things for this pattern. First is some skin tone yarn, and I'm using Amigurumi skin tones in the color dark 1. You can also use dark 2. I just wanted it to show up a little bit better on the video and pictures, so I used the lighter one, but either one would work. And this is only available at CraftyisCool.com. You're also going to need black yarn, and I used Karen Simply Soft in black. You're going to need a dark gray and a light gray. These are for the details, the lines and stuff on his suit. So I used this, I think this is Hobby Lobby soft something, whatever their in-house, whatever. I bought it a long time ago, and I took the labels off a long time ago, so I'm not exactly sure, but I'm pretty sure that's what this is. It's just kind of like a dark charcoal color and a gray, light gray, but it comes off as silver because it's really shiny. You're gonna need embroidery floss and an embroidery needle and a yarn needle and this is a size D crochet hook. That's what I like to use. Is that upside down? I like to use this lately, my go-to, D. You're also going to need stuffing, and then I put wires in his arms, and I buy this big spool of armature wire from Amazon, and I have it linked on my Amazon or whatever because I use this giant spool. But if you want to buy some, it's in the jewelry section of craft stores. And you can also get it in the like fake floral section. It's called like floral wire, but it's the same type of thing. So wire. And then I used 6mm eyes for him. They're pretty small. And then a scrap of pink yarn for his lip, bottom lip. I think that's about it. Okay, so let's get started. Okay, so we're going to start how I start all of my amigurumi by using a magic loop. So make a loop, hold it with your fingers, insert your hook into the front of the loop, and pull up your working yarn. With a twist, you bring it up to the front, and then you chain 1. Next, you're going to single crochet 6 into that ring. Once you have 6 stitches, you're going to pull the tail and it'll close up the hole. And you've made your first round. Continuing here, you're going to crochet 2 single crochets into each of those 6 stitches. And so at the end of this round, you'll have 12 stitches. So I've skipped the part between where we just were and here because it was just a lot of crocheting in the round, but you're going to continue to work the pattern as it's written, and now you are starting to work on the nose. So I am making a bobble stitch. You're going to yarn over, insert the hook in the next stitch, and pull the yarn through 2 loops on the hook. You do that several times and you will have 4 loops on your hook. You yarn over one more time and pull it through all of the loops, and that made his nose. And then you're going to continue working all the way around. Okay, so after we do the nose round and we continue working, this is what it's going to look like. We've done a couple more rounds, and then we're going to start decreasing the head. So just continue following the pattern as it's written. Okay, so now you're going to insert the eyes. You're going to follow the instructions that come with your eyes. Mine, I'm going to put them in the face 4 stitches apart and 2 rows above the nose. So you insert the post, and then you're going to put the backing on, and just make sure you have that really secure. Okay, now we've finished the eyes and we're going to stuff the head. So don't get too much because it'll pull holes in your stitching apart. So you're just going to put it in, kind of take a look. You can shift the eyes around. And just make sure you have enough to where it'll fill it up, but not too much to where it's pulling your stitches apart and making holes. And now we're just going to continue with the pattern and finish the head. So we're going to take the tail that's left and use a yarn needle to sew up the bottom of the head. Now we're going to start with the body, and it started just like the head. We're going to do a magic loop. So you're going to make a loop with your yarn, insert your hook into the front of the loop, and then chain 1. You're going to crochet 6 single crochets into the magic loop, and then you're going to pull it closed so that it will close up the hole in your work. So I've skipped ahead and now we're well into crocheting the body. And we're just going to keep going around and around, and it's starting to make a tube. This is going to be the bottom of the body. So just keep going according to the pattern. So we've finished crocheting all the way up till this point, and now you need to stuff it before it gets too small. So go ahead and insert your stuffing, and you'll continue on. Okay, so now we've finished crocheting the body, and that is the last round. That's the neck. We're going to fasten off, leave a pretty long tail for sewing it to the head. So to attach the head to the body, we're going to need a dowel. This is actually a bamboo skewer that you would use for grilling. I'm going to line it up and kind of see how long I need it. I cut it. You can also just break it off. Makes a cleaner break when you use your wire cutters. So go ahead and cut it, and then you'll flies across the table. And then you're going to insert it into the head and into the neck. So just twist it to kind of fit it in there and through the stuffing. And this might take a little work, but just get it in there. You can always add more stuffing if it gets squished down. And then you're going to do the same thing and put it into the head. And just line it up. It should be not exactly centered. Put it about around behind where that last closing hole was. So insert it in there, and then you're gonna kind of make sure everything is lined up how you want it, and then you'll sew that last yarn tail onto the head. So after you've sewn it on, then you're just gonna knot it off and insert the needle into your work so it will hide the end, and then cut it. Now we're going to start making the legs. So you're not going to start with a magic loop this time. You're going to actually chain 20 with your black yarn and your D hook. And after you have 20 chain stitches, you're going to join the yarn to the first chain to form a ring. And you're going to use a slip stitch. So you have 20 stitches, and you're going to insert your hook into that first chain that you first started out with, and just make sure you don't twist your chain. That's what I'm demonstrating here. So you're going to insert your hook into the first chain that you made, and then pull up a loop. There you go, you're inserting it. Pull up a loop, and then just pull it all the way through the loop on your hook. Okay, so now you have the starting like waistband of your pants. And so the first stitch in that next round, you're just going to single crochet into the next stitch. You're going to go all the way around, and you're going to have 20 stitches. And this actually all counts as the first round. So I sped this up, but you get the idea. We are doing 20 stitches all the way around, and then we're actually going to do several more rounds of 20, and we're going to end up with the whole like top of the pants. So after completing those rounds of stitches, we're going to start splitting this into two so that we can have legs. I use a stitch marker to mark the beginning of the round so that I will know where to continue crocheting. So you are going to work only into 10 stitches and then back into the first stitch. And that's actually going to create a split in this piece, and it'll start the first leg. So we've done 10 stitches, and as you can see, I'm going to leave those 10 other stitches unworked, and I'm going to cross over the center of my work into that first stitch with the stitch marker, and that's going to split it in two and create the first leg. So as you can see, this is in super fast motion, but I'm just crocheting the leg all the way down following the pattern. So now we are starting the foot, and we're going to keep going just on the leg, and we're going to make a big long rectangular piece that actually comes off the leg and creates a foot. It folds back, you'll see. So just follow the pattern, doing a chain one, and you'll work back and forth in rows. So you finished the foot, and now you just have this long rectangle sticking off of the leg. So fasten off and leave a long tail because you're going to have to sew that all up. For the second leg, you're going to join the yarn. You have to make a slip knot to attach the yarn to your hook, and then you're going to join at that first open stitch right there. You're going to just work 10 single crochets around that open leg. So when you make it all the way back to the beginning, there's going to be an opening between your first stitch and the stitch you just worked. I like to insert my hook into that crotch area. I don't know how else to say it, but I like to insert my hook there and then just keep going. You're not making an extra stitch there. You're just kind of holding that in. And then you're going to put your hook into the first stitch of that round, and that closes up the leg. Now you've got your two legs and your 2 feet, and you're gonna go ahead and sew the pants to the body. Thread your yarn tail with on a yarn needle and line it up with the body. I put the seam in the back, but I think on this one it ended up in the middle front. Anyway, it doesn't matter as long as your feet are facing the right direction. That's how you need to line it up. So when you've finished, you can weave in the ends by knotting it and then pulling it all the way through, and then you're just going to clip it close to the surface and let it be hidden inside the doll. Now we're going to start stuffing the legs, so just insert a little bit at a time into each leg. And you can use a tool if you need to, or you can use your fingers. This is a stuffing tool. It comes with bags of stuffing sometimes, or you can use like a pencil or whatever, but just stuff them to where the stuffing does not show through. If you overstuff it, then the stuffing will show through. Now we're going to sew up the feet. So you just thread the yarn tail onto a yarn needle and fold that rectangle you made all the way back. The heel should touch the back of the leg, and stitch across and around, all the way around. So when you're almost finished, you're going to stitch up the last edge of the foot. You'll need to add some stuffing. So before you stitch that up, just put in a little bit. You don't need much. And then you'll stitch the whole edge closed. So now I've finished both feet, and I'm going to clip off my yarn. And just make sure they're both facing the right direction. Now we're going to start on the arms. They are crocheted from the hand up, and you're going to use a magic ring. And following the pattern, you're going to do 2 that are exactly the same. So now you've crocheted the whole arm, and you're going to get some stuffing. And using the same technique that we did with the legs, where you just insert a little bit at a time, using a pencil or a stuffing tool, you're going to stuff the arms. So now we're done with the arms, and we're going to fasten off and set them aside. To attach the arms, first we're going to cut a piece of wire so that we can make them posable. So I like to just lay out the 16 gauge wire across the doll so that I can make sure I'm getting the right length. I bend the ends and insert each one into the shoulder end of an arm, and then through the body, and then through the other arm. So I'm showing this in fast motion because it's kind of a tedious process, but you have to kind of wiggle the wire through. You want to make sure not to let it poke out the end. That's why we curve the wire at the end. That one was a little bit too long, so I cut it off. And if I promise it will go in. If you just work with it, it will find its way through to where you want it to go. And then you're just going to sew each arm all the way around using the yarn tail and a yarn needle. And just make sure to line up your stitches. It helps to make the stitches more invisible. Make sure it's very secure. Now we're starting the hair. The hair is a separate round piece that's crocheted, fitted over the head, and then sewn in place. So follow the instructions in the pattern for crocheting that piece. It's really similar to how you began the head. So now you're going to fit the piece over the head, following the instructions in the pattern. You're going to use a yarn needle to stitch it all the way around to the top of the head. It's positioned tilted back, as you can see, and I like to start in the back and go around the front. When you get to the center front, you're going to start a widow's peak, just like Black Panther has. So you're going to bring your yarn down in the center just a little bit to create that V shape in the front. So when you're finished, you're going to just clip off the yarn tail and you're finished with the hair. Next, we're doing ears, and they're super tiny, and there's only 3 stitches in a magic loop, and that is it. You're gonna make 2 of them and then sew them to the sides of the head, overlapping the hair. So thread a yarn needle with the tail of one of your ears and line up the ear on the side of the head. And you're just going to use that yarn tail to stitch it into place, and then you're going to weave in the other yarn tail, your starting yarn tail. Now you're starting the beard, and it's just going to be a long chain. You're going to crochet into that chain to make the shape of the beard, and then it will be stitched onto the face. So when you're done, you need to cut a really long tail because you're going to use that to sew it onto the doll's face. So line it up. The wider part goes in the center over his chin. You'll need pins to pin it into place onto his face. So now you're just weaving in your ends and clipping it short. Now we are going to stitch on the mustache. So just thread your yarn needle with a strand of black yarn, and you're going to come up under the beard, up to right under the nose, and then across, and then repeat it on the other side. And now we will do the same thing for the eyebrows. So you're going to thread a yarn needle with black yarn and make 2 horizontal, pretty loose stitches above each eye. 1 above each eye. Now we're going to start crocheting the mask for Black Panther, and it is pretty straightforward if you follow the pattern for the first several rounds. Now you are going to start an ear on the mask, and that requires you to crochet into the front loop only, and then you're going to chain, and then you're actually going to crochet into that chain, and that makes a little piece that projects out of the mask to make it look like a little ear. So follow the pattern, and there are 2 ears, and they are just part of that round. So this is when you're going to start the second ear, and as you can see, we single crochet into the front loop, and then we're going to chain 1, 2, 3, 4, single crochet into the second chain, then you're going to half double crochet into the next chain, and that's I think the yarn split. Then you're going to double crochet into the last chain, and then you'll continue working. That's your little ear sticking out. Then you're going to continue working around, single crocheting into both loops of each stitch as normal. So now when you reach the end of that round, you can go back and you can see that there's 2 little cat ears, panther ears sticking up off the round. So now when you keep going, you're just going to crochet into the loop that you stitched, that you skipped, because you sort of skipped the back loop because you only crocheted into the front loop. So you're going to crochet into the loop right behind that ear. You'll see. So we crochet into 7 stitches, and you're going to work half double crochets so that the stitch height matches up. And there you're finding the back loop of that skipped loop. So that's a half double crochet into those 2. Okay, and then 1 more half double crochet, And then you're going to keep going. So you can check your stitch counts and use a stitch marker if you would like to, if that helps you. So after you've been working the mask for several more rows, you're going to start working actually in rows on row 12 or row 10, and it will start to come out with this kind of a rectangular flap piece. When you get to the end of that row 12, you won't chain and turn. You're going to stitch down into the original stitch that comes next, as if you were going around in a circle, and it draws in the bottom of the mask to make it curve around his head. So you're actually working inside out at this point because you're working around the outside, if that makes sense. So you're going to keep crocheting around the back. So now you're at the back of the helmet or the mask, and then it will go all the way to the end and meet back up with the edge of that piece that you're working. And as you're working this pattern, you're going to see exactly what I'm talking about, because you'll have this little flap thing hanging off, and you're going to connect it just by making stitches. And it actually turns out pretty cool because it makes it very structural and three-dimensional. So this is the part where you're at the end of that round, and you're going to connect it back up to the top, and it just draws it in and draws it together, makes it completely curve. It's really pretty cool. And then you're going to continue working it around. So now you've gotten almost all the way to the end, and you've done a bunch of decreases, and it is really looking like a mask now. So all of that shaping has paid off, and you're going to finish off and fasten off your yarn and leave a tail just to weave in. So at this point, you should try the mask onto your doll and make sure that it fits correctly. You might have to stretch it, but it's okay because it is just yarn. And as you can see, it's a tight fit, but if it was really loose, it would look weird. So that's what you want. So now you're going to want to mark where you want the eyes on the mask. While the mask is still on the doll, use stitch markers, and you can just loop it right around the stitch that you want to put the eye in. So they should be symmetrical and pretty close together. So this is just where you're going to stitch after you take the mask off. So now I've threaded a yarn needle with the dark gray yarn, and I'm going to go in through the back of the mask, and I'm just going to stitch some short horizontal stitches for the eyes. And I'm going to try that again. And I'm going to just do all of the dark gray color first, and I'm going to speed it up so you can see what I do, and then I'm going to go in and do the highlights with the silver yarn. Now I am going to go in and do the stitches with the silver yarn. As you can see, there's fewer of them, and it just adds some highlighting to the darker stitches that we did before. All right, so now we are going to do the same thing on the body of the doll, and we're going to make a lot of diagonal lines and stitches. You can refer to the photos in the pattern. You can also refer to pictures of this actual character if you'd like. There's just a lot of texture added with these lines and V's, and so as long as you have just kind of a geometric pattern, it's going to evoke the suit that you want it to. So it doesn't have to be completely exact and perfect, because I think this one is actually different from the first one that I made, but they both kind of look, you know, you can tell who it's supposed to be. So you're going to use the dark gray yarn first, and then you're going to go in with the silver yarn. So now you're going in with the silver yarn, and you're going to make his necklace and a lot of the highlights all the way around. There's going to be some little claw-looking lines around his cuffs and his arms, and then you're going to do his toenails. Okay, so now you can take some black embroidery floss. I like to use about 3 strands of the floss. It comes in 6 strands, so 2 or 3 strands, and we're just going to go in, tie a knot at the end, and then pull it through. It should go through the stitches, but make sure it doesn't come out the other side. And then you're just going to stitch a horizontal line for the mouth. So now you're going to use just a scrap of pink or peach yarn, and you're going to make a short horizontal stitch right under that line for the bottom lip. And just make it kind of loose so it doesn't completely cover up the line for the lip. If it looks too pink, you could add some brown eyeshadow so it could darken it a little bit. I've done that before. And now King T'Challa is finished and everything looks like it's in place. You can bend his arms and you can make him pose, his ears, his hair. There's always going to be lint stuff on some black yarn, so looks like he's finished, and he can even do the Wakanda salute. Wakanda forever. There he goes. And that's it. Finished. Okay, thanks guys for watching, and if you were able to follow along, that's awesome, and I would love to see your Black Panther if you make one. Tag me at CraftyisCool on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, whatever, and I'll share it and repost it. So, like I said, go to CraftyisCool.com for the pattern. I think I like to follow along written patterns, so you'll find it there, and hope you have an amazing day. Stay crafty and cool, and Wakanda forever. Thanks.